Good afternoon, everybody. Friday, March 18th, and I know everybody's settling in for another busy day of March Madness and college basketball, but we have more important things to get to. He is Drew Dinkmeyer, needs no introduction when it comes to any style of prop betting, any daily fantasy projections, as good as it gets in the industry. And Drew, for the first show on Wednesday, a pretty easy one with PJ Washington unders.
Yeah, I thought that line was wrong. I thought it should have been 7.5, maybe even 6.5. I would have bet it at 7.5 too, honestly. We had the projection at 6.4 combined rebounds and assists. So one of the biggest projection gaps we've actually seen in maybe a month. So it was really nice timing to open the show with probably our biggest edge bet that we've had in a month.
Paid off for everybody that joined the stream in a big way. We had more than 400 people betting that. The line went within about 15 seconds at every book across the market. And we'll see what kind of trouble we can stir up at a few different sports books today with another release that we'll have. And for those of you who are joining the show for the first time, maybe you missed Wednesday, let's explain what's going on here. Obviously, Drew and the guys at ETR carry a ton of influence with them in all of the prop markets. And so in order to get everybody able to get the same bets, no matter where you're betting, the same odds, we have to follow a bit of a release procedure. So here's how it's going to work. We'll start off by telling you what game the prop is in. So what two teams are playing, what game are we betting? That's your cue to start going through your sportsbook list to ultimately get to the prop. Then we'll tell you what prop market we are betting. We'll give everybody about 10 seconds to find that market. Then we'll tell you what team the player we are betting on is for. And that'll give you a chance to sort of narrow down the list of players you're looking at in order to find where you're going to click next. Then we'll tell you which player we are betting on, and we'll give everybody about 5 seconds before saying whether or not we are betting on the over or the under. And as soon as we say that, you have to get this bet in immediately because, again, as we saw last episode, there was about 10 seconds, and then everything went off the board. So, again, we'll tell you what game, what market, what team, who is the player, and then the over or under. So you have to follow along step by step as we go before we get to the release. And then Drew will tell you his projection as well as maybe a couple notes on why the bet is being made. Drew, you ready to go?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. So everybody get to, obviously, the NBA side of your sports book, and we will start off with the game. The game we are betting is Denver at Cleveland. So we'll give everybody a couple seconds to find Denver at Cleveland. This is the game in which the prop is taking place. The market which we are betting on is player points. So it's a big market. So no matter what sportsbook you're betting at, you're going to have player point totals. So we'll give everybody 5 more seconds to get into player points. The team we are betting on, or the team which the player we are betting on plays for, is Denver. Is a Denver Nugget player. We'll narrow it down in a few more seconds. The player who we are betting on, and again, as soon as I say the name, it'll be 5 seconds, and then we'll give the over or the under. The player we are betting on is Nikola Jokic. And the bet is over 24.5 points minus 125. So the bet is on Jokic over 24.5 points at minus 125. We're seeing a difference of prices at a couple of different sports books. This is good at up to minus 135. DraftKings has it. FanDuel has a bit of an alternate price that we're seeing. MGM, Caesars all have Jokic at 24.5. As you're betting this in the chat, let us know where you're betting. What odds did you get? What price did you get? What did you ultimately see at your sports book? It seems like some people are getting 25.5 at minus 104, like we're seeing on the screen, minus 120 for the 24.5 at MGM. Couple people were able to get that price. MGM typically slower to move. Drew, we've got people asking 25.5 minus 104. Still good at that number?
It's tight, but it's good at 25.5 minus 104. I'd take it up to 25.5 minus 118, minus 120 or so.
Okay, so as people are betting this, Caesars over 24.5 minus 130, 24.5 minus 130 at bet 365. We're already seeing the Jokic price start to increase across the board. As people continue to bet, they're finding more prices as well on this over. Give us the breakdown here of what you guys were seeing in Jokic. Where was your projection? Where do you think this number should be, and what's going on within this bet?
Yeah, so I think the number is quickly kind of correcting to where it should be, which is probably 25.5, like minus 120 or so is probably what it should be. The interesting thing here is this is a very unusual bet for us to take. It's very unusual for us to take a bet on an established player with a points line. These are some of the most efficient markets. What's happening here is subtle. And what's happening is on Cleveland defensively, since Jared Allen has gone down, Evan Mobley is an incredible defender. He's got a reputation as an incredible defender. And he is. He's one of the best rookie defenders we've seen in the league in 15, 20 years. But he's not big enough to play against some of the true centers. And if you look at what's happened over the last 5 or so games, when Jared Allen has gone down, he gave up 35 points to Embiid on 13 of 19 shooting, gave up 24 points to Zubac on 10 of 15 shooting. Vucevic went for 20 points on 9 of 19 shooting. Bam Adebayo, 30 points on 11 for 16 shooting. And Isaiah Jackson, kind of a role player for Indiana, played 22 minutes, went 6 of 7 from the field for 12 points. All these players, basically, with the exception of Vucevic, destroyed their points lines. And I think it has to do with Mobley's, he's just not big enough. He's a young kid. And I think Jokic, in addition, is about as well rested as we've gotten from Jokic in a while here. The rest of Cleveland's defense is pretty good. Their defensive rating has slipped without Jared Allen from like 108 to 112 in the small sample. But I think this is going to be a scoring-oriented game from Jokic. And as I alluded to, the rest situation, he had played a 7 games in 10 days period. In that last game against Philadelphia, they got a game off. The next day against Washington, they basically blew him out, and he only had to play like 25 minutes, gets another rest day. So this is about as rested as we've gotten Jokic all season. He's my favorite player in the league. I think he's deserving of the MVP award, and I think this line should have been about a point higher with a little bit extra juice on that side as well.
So you're getting the rest advantage, you're getting the matchup advantage, a lot of boxes being checked here. And as the chat continues to come in, there are people finding that 24.5 minus 132. There's some regulated books that still have it at minus 140. People are pointing out Prize Picks at 24.5. So there's lots of people able to find that. But this is typically what you see on a daily basis, especially this time of the day where the prop numbers tend to shift pretty quickly. So still, I would say a successful release in terms of everybody being able to bet together and get it. But it also shows the importance of having multiple sports books. And producer Brady pulled up the prop comparison that we had over at Covers earlier in the explanation there that kind of shows the breakdown of the different books you can play it. So that's something that can help. But I think you would agree that when you can have as many sports books as possible, especially with what you guys are releasing on a daily basis in the service and beyond, you're going to be able to find those prices if one of them, like we saw with FanDuel, tends to move a little bit early.
Absolutely. And you'll consistently see, 10 to 20 cent differences kind of throughout the industry, even on established players on established markets. And so giving yourself that breathing room, especially on props that are being released via a package like they are with ours, we'll release a number and we only have 30 seconds before the line moves really, really aggressively. So giving yourself the most breathing room that you can is certainly going to add up to additional expected value over time.
So Jokic over 24.5 is the release here on the show. People were asking the projection. You had him at 25.5 up to minus 130 or better.
Yeah, our projection right now is 26.2 points, but it is not factoring in some of the defensive adjustment differences. This is a situation where there's an art and a science to kind of betting props and understanding. And this is a mix of both. So we've got a little bit of room on the 24.5 line. It's a small percentage difference in terms of projection gap. Our expected value is still like plus 18, plus 20 cents is basically kind of what we've got. The I know better situation, the science part of this is that I don't think our data, and I don't think data around the industry is going to particularly understand the difference in Jared Allen defensively versus Evan Mobley against this type of center, these big, bulky centers that are just have a huge size advantage compared to Evan Mobley at this stage in his career.
One last general question we have from Keenan Bristow. I think is a good one that's relatively similar to the topic that we were just discussing. He was asking, what is your stance on attacking one player with multiple lines? Basically, if you think that he is going to have a good game from a point perspective, do you think that the other prop markets, rebounds plus assists, are also tending to be lower as well? Is there correlation there?
This is the case a lot of times with smaller numbers. With big numbers, just because players can only kind of do so many things at once, like a Jokic who's going to have a big PRA line because of his assist totals, because of his rebound totals. He can't get assists and points on the same play. So for some players where it's a projection difference in terms of minutes or in terms of role or different things like that, yes, absolutely. But it's going to be more on those mid-size numbers. I'll give an example. Last game for Utah, we had Jordan Clarkson. We had an edge on rebounds and assists, and we had an edge on points, and we had an edge on PRA. So we played multiple Jordan Clarkson lines for our subscribers in our recommendations. And that was a situation where I think we just had a different minutes projection than, the market in terms of what they were using there. They all kind of came through for us. He had a good game. But those were like mid-tier lines. The RA was 5.5. The points was 17.5. The PRA was 22.5. These lines with Jokic that are going to be like, 42.5, 44.5, something like that. It's hard because if you're attacking the points, he can't be getting assists at the same time. So there's some of the markets are going to provide a little bit of edge, but the better ones to attack are going to be the less established players with injury changes or different things like that, where we might have more sizable projection gaps.
So stick with the Jokic over 24.5, or if you have to pay up for the 25.5, don't exceed -130. But the release officially over 24.5 at the -125. A reminder for everybody who joined the show, hit the subscribe button below, continue to support Established to Run. And then on Wednesday, we will be over doing the same thing again on the Covers YouTube channel. So you can follow us over at covers.com. But there's the links to follow Drew, to follow Adam, to follow ETR, myself, and covers.com in the description below. So if you've enjoyed the show, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate you coming by. Follow the links below, and we will be back with you guys on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern with another prop. Let's get a lot of points from Jokic tonight.